Hello, Elgrandos. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Got a bit of a lurgy. Not COVID. Anyway, I'm going to show you today how to modify your sat nav in your Elgrando E51 Series 1 and Series 2 only, possibly E50 as well. So anyway, this first picture, it just shows I've circled the date stamp on my picture of the clock. It's lined up to my local time. And yeah, it's all in this next picture. It's the one on the screen display when you go to information, and you bring up the screen, and it will come up with the local time as well. They're both aligned, so that's really good. All right, so we'll get into it. You have to take off the bottom shroud, the plastics, like a big encasing thing at the bottom of the center console. We'll start off with this next to the driver's footrest. You can see that on the ground, the little pop tabs. That I only took these pictures after I was starting the install, so I thought I'd get a record. But anyway, the center of that little round pin pushes in about 2 or 3 millimeters. Don't push it in all the way like with a long nail. Just need to push it in about 2-3 millimeters, and then you lever out the round thing and save it for reinstall later, and then go over to the other side, passenger side, because it's going to be easier to do most of the work from the passenger side. Depends on how you're oriented with your left or right handedness or both. So second side down near the floor well is a footwell, is another one of these pop tabs. Same procedure, push the middle in, lever it out, and then to reinstall them you just push that tab in, like reline the little teeth in it, and then push it in so it's flush. Next step, remove the surround from your cigarette lighter. I, of course, have modified mine. There's got a USB plug there now. So it just unclips, pull it out, quite easy. Next step, there's a drawer down above the sat-nav flap. Top of this console surround you're going to be removing. You just pull it out, wiggle it up and down, and it comes out too quite easy. Next step, take off the bottom sat-nav unit cover flap. You can see I've already got my switches in place. Yeah, so that flap just opens up, and then just pull it straight up towards your face. And then next step, there's a black surround in behind that. Just that pops off as well. Now, go back up a little bit, just above the sat-nav unit. There's 2 screws you'll have to undo that I've circled, left and right. And then the next step, up a bit further, beside your original cigarette lighter plug, 2 more screws to undo. All right, now then this, the whole unit, plastic bit, slides out, but you're not going to get this like this first go. You're barely going to be able to get your hand in to undo the cigarette lighter plugs. I've circled them when I was doing the mod for the USB plug. I just snapped the bloody things off the cigarette lighter plug because I couldn't get my hand in there or anything to undo the little plugs, so I wouldn't be needing them ever again. So yeah, just tape them up. The next step, now that you've got the plugs undone, slide out all the plastics and just put it in the back of your van. Support it with your favourite beverage bottle so you can take a picture and show your friends. Now, this little screw is kind of important. I didn't know about it. I didn't think of it because a step later on I broke all the plastics around it. I should have removed this little screw. It's on the driver's side. Just you'll see it there on the bottom of the plastics that are remaining on the corner. And to the bottom left of this picture, you'll see there's a part of an air duct. I've got stars on it, and removing that is how I broke the plastics. But it's no big problem because when you put the bottom plastics back on, that's all covered up. Next step. You can see on the right hand side there I've got the duct marked with stars. This duct you'll have to remove. So to get that off I've got it circled, this little metal bracket with some electrical thing on it. Take those 2 screws out and then sit that little bracket aside. Here's the duct in question removed. As it's in place, it sits in that orientation. To remove it, you grab it, put your fingers in, pull the top of it towards you, or the back of the car, and then once it's cleared the duct where it slots onto at the top, then just pull out of the hole in the diagonal method. And reinstalling is the same, the reverse. You just put the bottom in and then push it down. Some wires you've got to look out for, run over the top of it, not across the hole, and then push it forward and it's back in place, but you do that later. Next step, once you've got the duct out, each side of the sat-nav unit, you'll see some 10mm bolts. You can use a big Phillips head screwdriver if you've got one. To each side, if it hasn't been played with and they're lost. And importantly, you've got to remember that bottom circle here shows 2 wire terminators. They're a earth return for the sat-nav unit. The sat-nav unit controls everything, controls stereo and the screens and your compass, everything. So when you're putting it back together, remember those 2 black wires. Yeah. Okay, as a bonus, I found out that my compass is now showing the correct direction because the GPS is not plugged into the sat-nav unit. Bonus. It used to be 90 degrees out, also probably assuming that the car was still in Japan. Anyway, unplugging those GPS cables did a great job. So here it is, all wires are removed. I forgot to mention, you may have to unclip it's the component, that's that black wire and plug sitting on top of the unit. Squeeze some little lugs to remove the plug out of that bracket. And what you're going to need to do from here is unplug at the rear of the unit these 2 grey cables for the GPS antenna. You won't be needing them again. Also, you'll see it on the back left of the sat-nav unit. There's one sitting there. Now, on the side bracket closest to us in the middle, you're going to have to remove this bracket. You'll see 2 black screws into the side of the unit, extremely tight. I had a Stanley screwdriver and with my hand I shattered the bit on one of those screws. I had to get a much higher quality Phillips head screwdriver though. They were that tight and using such downward force that if I'd slipped, then it might have gone through my leg and out the other side, this screwdriver. But anyway, you've got to take that bracket off. And then you will then find a white plug at the back. Now you can see the 2 yellow circles. This is where there's a yellow green stripe pair of wires going there. They are the permanent positive supply for the sat-nav unit. So when they're not connected by using a switch, the unit has no power going to it. But there's an internal battery for memory. We'll talk about that in a minute. So next step, once you've got the bracket off the side, which I've got here again, circled 2 screws on the right, if you can get that off, you will be then unclipping the black fascia. I think from memory it was a small Phillips head, a small flathead screwdriver with 6 bits that just sort of clip over. Remove that. That'll expose a couple of screws at the top for the top cover, 2 or 3, and on the back of the cover facing in towards the radio from the back of the new unit, there's 3 more screws or 2, and then you lever off that top cover, provided you're able to get that side bracket off. I use some good quality side cutters, tin snips, sorry. Use some good quality tin snips to get access to that battery because it was just too hard to get that circuit board out of that in that unit. I think it's soldered in many spots, so they don't want people getting in easy. It doesn't matter about the hole. You won't see it. You lever off that top bracket, it's a bit difficult. Then inside you'll find internal battery. It's green here. You can see it's got heat shrink on it. It's got 3 pins that go into the circuit board. The outer 2 ones I've marked are positive, and the middle one closest to us is negative. That's the one that you're going to have to desolder with a soldering iron. Just heat up the glob of solder and lever out that negative terminal from that battery, which is the middle one again. Then you're going to have to run some wires, solder them on to that glob of solder on the board and onto that leg. Then insulate it as you like. It doesn't really matter about that hole. I forgot to mention, once they're installed and there's a a whopping big hole for a fan there on the side anyway. So yeah, you run your wires long enough to where you want to put your switches, which I suggest would be in the bottom flap. They tuck away in there nicely, 1 or 2 switches. There's my 2 switches again. You can use 1 switch for two position double throw double pole switch. You just coordinate it so you flick off the battery power from your car battery, and you flick off the memory battery in the sat nav unit. It loses the memory of the time because you haven't plugged in the GPS antennas. The sat nav unit won't be able to get a lock on that atomic clock in Japan if that's the case. And also don't forget to reinstall the power wire at the back and your other plugs. You can only put it back one way, all the plugs. Every plug is a different shape, so you can't go wrong. Then once you put it all back together, fire it up, and you're going to have to set the time. Well, that's something you can only do twice a day, 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. So set yourself an alarm on your phone or your clock, or go out, get in your car, disconnect power, look at your watch or your clock, wait till it ticks over to 9 o'clock, a.m. or p.m., doesn't matter. Both switches back on, and there you go. It will never change back to Japanese time without being able to check with Japan. Good luck.